This is my 70.3 Swansea Pro Series recap. I finally got around to doing it because I've just been a little bit on the back foot / also prepping for Ironman Leeds, which is probably one of my key races of the season. So I've been trying to focus on that, but also just regroup after Swansea. I thought I'd just go through the day, kind of a bit of a recap of the days leading in, and then what I've been doing since in the preparation for Leeds.
Oh, right, I am almost a week post Swansea, just starting to come around with my legs and stuff, but overall pretty fed up and pissed off. What's this weather? This is perfect conditions for me to race in. I did suffer in the heat. I'll go into a little bit more in a bit, but yeah, this is ideal. It's like dry, mild, pretty chilled, but yeah, it's frustrating, but at the same time, had a good race.
As I mentioned in the previous video, I was pretty worried about this race just because my numbers were all over the place, like my form and shape and feeling of the weeks leading in were pretty terrible, mainly because I've been doing this heat prep stuff, which was trying to kind of adapt me for the heat because I just don't cope very well in the hotter conditions. And I was trying to mitigate that as much as possible by doing a little bit of the kind of active heat stuff that had been recommended by Precision.
Essentially, I'm doing a few efforts today. It's Saturday, just getting a little bit of conditioning and aerobic physiology tune up for next weekend in Leeds. On Thursday, I introduced my first bit of intensity, which was in the open water swim. And then Friday I tried a run session and it went fine, but it was just tough. Like, I think my legs are still coming around post Swansea.
I felt awful, like it'd been the worst numbers and form that I'd seen in years, and I was just so way out to sea with these numbers that I didn't really know what to do with myself, because it was really disconcerting when you're not really able to train like your normal training is, or how you normally train, and I just didn't know where I was, whereas usually I kind of know how I'm going to perform roughly in a race, like obviously mitigating circumstances aside, like what I'm able to put out. And this time I just didn't know, like I had no idea. And when that happens, I find that you literally really struggle to be confident standing on the start line. So I've been struggling with confidence all season, and that's maybe for another day. But yeah, I was worried, essentially, is the long story short. But anyway, I stayed in Swansea the day before. I did a longish ride, like 2-3 hours the day before, just to go around the course, but also keep the volume high for Leeds, so that the conditioning wasn't going to be completely lost. Not that it would necessarily, but I like to keep a fair bit of volume in my program anyway. Did a little bit of race prep stuff, and then, yeah, just stayed in Leeds overnight, ready for the morning. The morning of, I found that there was a load of time. Like I spent time with Yeston and Ollie, which was really nice. It's nice to have like friends on the start line with you. And then, yeah, warmed up. Loads of time, just because I think I'm used to an Ironman start where you have to start ridiculously early because it's such a long day. So yeah, that was nice to have a little bit of extra time. I had my mum down there. I had other people that I knew down there. Had other fellow Brits down there, which was great because then you can just spend time chatting to them. It kind of takes your mind off of things. So yeah, I actually felt okay the morning of, and I guess warming up felt all right as well, and then got to the start line. Again, loads of people that I knew, did a very small amount of warm up and kind of waited for the start. Whilst I was waiting, it was pretty epic. Like the swim was in this kind of like dock sort of area, so all of the kind of surrounding area, like on the walls, people were looking into the dock, which was so cool because it was just packed. Like people had come, I don't know how far, but all of Swansea, it felt like, was there watching the race. And that was such an amazing atmosphere, and let alone the age groupers as well were able to watch the start of the race because they were all lined up ready to start themselves. So I think that was such a nice experience for all of us locals, especially, to have so many supporting people there, so many crowds there, and Wales really turned up. So yeah, it was really good to see. But anyway, we were starting to line up on the start line. I started on the far right. A lot of the other faster swimmers I noticed had started on the far left, which would have been the inside buoy or inside line to the first buoy, which was going to be a little bit hectic because it was quite close. So I guess I went for where I thought there would be the most space, because my experience in Venice was that when I took the inside line, and there was a lot of very fast people there as well, I got absolutely battered and chucked out the back of the front group essentially. So I was at the back of that front group of maybe 10 to 15 in Venice. And I didn't really want that to happen. I wanted a little bit of an easier way around the buoy, even if that meant that I had to work hard thereafter. So the gun went, started pretty solid, got a little bit of clean water. There was still someone slightly on my hip, but it didn't really hamper me. Kind of assessed the situation. I breathed to my right, so because I started on the right, I was basically looking at maybe one person to my right, whereas everyone else was on the left. Not really an issue, because I almost back myself to almost be there if everyone's like on an equal playing field. But I wasn't quite there. So when I arrived to the first buoy, I was a fair few people back and on the outside. So that meant that I had to go to work between the first and second buoy, and after that as well, because by the time we got onto the long stretch to go out to the far side, I found myself in a nice line. I had to work to get on Yeston's feet, but by the time that I'd actually noticed that there was a gap to the front group of 5, it was quite far into the race, and there was not substantial, but enough of a gap to be a gap, essentially. So by the time I noticed, because the glare was in my eyes, I couldn't see over Yeston and see what the gap was doing. When I noticed that, we were almost at the far side. So I tried to put in an effort to come around Yeston and shut that gap for us, so that we could then latch on and do the rest of the swim with the front group. Because there was 5 people ahead. I can't remember all of their names, but Sam Dickinson and Yannick Schoeffler were leading, and then Ollie was in there, and as was Kieran Linders. So there was the majority of them there, and all fast swimmers. So I didn't want them to get a gap and then go, because then they could have been lost. As it happens, I managed to shut the gap, and then Yeston held that gap for the rest of the swim. So I could have potentially been okay on Yeston's feet, but I still would have been in that second group, if you will. And I think that that benefited me by jumping across and sitting in that next group, because my T1 was not that quick. It's a long run to the bags, probably 600, 800 meters. So it took me quite a long time to get there. Even though I was running pretty solid, everyone else ran faster than me. So by the time I jumped on my bike, I was with the second group of people. Malachi, Fred, and Andy were with me when I came out of transition, whereas I'd come out of the water with the front group, who are now slightly ahead of me. Anyway, jumped on the bike, absolutely sent it across the boulevard, the front of the race, Swansea, and I pushed about 385 watts for at least 5 to 6 minutes for the first part, just to try and bridge across, because it was about 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds that I'd lost in transition to the front of the race, because Sam Dickinson flew through and ditched everyone essentially. Luckily for me, Andy was also with me, so he sat on my wheel for a little bit. He then came round and closed the rest of the gap. So fantastic, because I don't think I could have held that for much longer. I essentially would have just blown up and not closed the gap. So he closed the rest of the gap to the front of the race, and then I was there and pretty happy. And we were going up and over the rollers, up the hills, and not feeling too bad. And then all of a sudden, I noticed that my hydration system had started coming apart. And this was annoying, because it was completely my fault that I hadn't tightened one of the screws, because I could hear something rattling in the days leading in, but I couldn't for the life of me find which bolt it was that was rattling. So long story short, I had to rip off that hydration system pretty early in the race, before the first aid station, because I ripped it off and chucked it into the litter zone of the aid station. But that meant that pretty much, well, half my hydration on the bike and most of my storage compartments on the bike were now gone. So I think that, coupled with my lack of confidence with my form, caused me to be a little bit conservative in the whole race and never really hit the front, never be aggressive, never be attacking. Just more so being on the cautious side, err on the side of caution, and just make sure I was here or thereabouts, because I was worried that, one, I was going to dehydrate because I'd lost a bit of my nutrition. Two, yeah, again, carbs, lost a fair bit of them. And three, I wasn't able to store fluids after I picked them up from the aid stations, because I only had one bottle cage left, and it was either full or it had some of my carbohydrates in or whatever it was. I didn't want to ditch that too early. So yeah, anyway, the second lap came round and we'd been caught by a lot of the big cyclists, big hitters like Hogan, Howe, Leon and Harry. So they came through the pack and started attacking. I shuffled my way to the back of the pack, or was shuffled to the back, leading into the second lap of the bike. And that's when we hit all the age groupers. And I was like, okay, fine, well, I'm here. This is kind of it now. I'll just settle in. Don't really know where everyone is because it's so twisty, and then age groupers. So I'll just carry on riding solid and hope that I end up with the group, because I had no idea where they'd gone. Anyway, we turned on to the hills to the top of the course, and I was with Andy and Kurt. And I think that was it. I couldn't see anyone else from the front group, and there was another probably 6 of them somewhere ahead. So I was just like, well, this is it until the end of the ride now, and I've just got to settle in and do what I can. But there was a long, fast descent, and I'm like a bit heavier, fairly aero, and I had enough gears to pedal all the way down, and absolutely sent it down this descent, and actually managed to reconnect with the front group eventually. Like, I kind of hit Yannick Schauffele first. He was just up the road. I was like, okay, carrot, let's go. Found him, and then after that, I think we basically connected to the front group not long after, when there was another aid station and people probably had to like collect fluids and slow down a little bit. So that was a relief, because I was still there at the front of the race, and a bit of a confidence boost as well, to be like, okay, well, if you do detach, you can cycle back up. After that, it was just a case of like making your way back into transition. Wasn't too difficult, I don't think. Like, it's still on. I think that the first hour was like 360 normalized, and the second hour 340-ish. So pretty high numbers, especially for me, but then it's quite a hilly course. And normalized is going to be higher than average by quite some bit. Came into transition, there was a little bit of a kerfuffle as to where we were going. I think we got sent the wrong way, but not too bad. I think it allowed the second group to catch us a little bit, but it really wasn't a lot. And came into T2 third, so it was Sam Dickinson who got a little bit of a march, and then Kurt, and then me. But we were in a group of then, I think it was about 6 or 7 of us. Andy dropped a chain and got spat off the back, so that was unfortunate, but yeah, we shelled Andy accidentally, I guess. But yeah, so 6 or 7 of us came into T2, and I was third out onto the run, I think it was. So Sam, Leon, and then me, but in a group essentially. And started, I felt really good. I felt great coming off the bike. I started running, and I don't have my watch on me ever, but I wear a foot pod so I could in post reflect, and I was running like decent pace for me, which was about 3:30 a k, and that's probably up there with some of the better numbers that I've done for a run off the bike. I felt really comfortable, got around the first lap, had actually shut a gap to Yannick Schauffele, who's a notoriously very good runner, and then managed to actually pull away. I think he was struggling a little bit, but still good from me, I guess. Was able to hold my pace there. And then was starting to shut down 6th, which was Kurt. And I was like, this is rare, being able to shut someone down. But that was short-lived. Got to 15k on the turnaround, started to have a bit of a tailwind, which meant that I was having a lack of cooling. And I think I just overheated in short. And on the way back, that last 5k, like 6k was death. I was really struggling. Could not really do much to kind of save my position. I was running in 7th at this time. So at the turnaround, I was 10 seconds behind Kurt. I'd shut it from about 30, maybe even more. And I was like, sweet, I could potentially get 6th here. But he just ran away from me after the turnaround, and I was getting caught then by Teagle and Leonard. So I ended up coming 9th, just out of the prize money, which is so frustrating. But also more frustrating that I just couldn't hold it together. Potentially another heat episode. I've looked at other things like potentially dehydration or carbohydrates, because obviously I couldn't have all my hydration on the bike. But I managed to get a decent amount of carbohydrates in all. And I was able to drink quite a lot on the course, even though the run course, even though that there wasn't that many aid stations, in my opinion. But I was doing quite well at getting quite a bit on board in comparison to other 70.3s that I've done. So yeah, it was a death march for the last couple of K. Those last like 2K felt like they were going on forever. Honestly, I thought that I was far closer than I was to the end, and it just carried on going. So that sucked really bad. I basically collapsed over the finish line, and that's the worst I've been after a race, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. I was in a really bad way. I had to be picked up off the floor, taken basically to see medical. I chucked a load of water on myself. I was very hot, so Yeston was kind of looking after me and Ollie after the race, and they were like, you're absolutely cooking. Like, let's pour some water on you, get some fluids in you, had an ice lolly, like everything to try and cool myself down. The medics came over to kind of take my temperature, and they were like, you're absolutely fine, there's nothing wrong with you. So I was like, maybe I'm just being dramatic, but no, I do think that there was an element of overheating there, whether it's perception or just generally hot. I definitely was in a bad way and had to recover from that afterwards. But I did come round, like an hour or two later, I was absolutely fine, as though it didn't even happen, like the episode. So yeah, bit of a bummer, but at the same time, there's a lot more promise there in terms of like my actual run ability. Like, I was running the way that I thought I should and could, until that last 5K, and then the bike, yeah, good numbers, and I was at the front of the race. So there's a lot to be positive for and with, and I was pleased to be at the front of the swim, or in the front pack of the swim, able to jump across a gap, and then also able to be at the front of the bike as well, and also cover moves, because I was just going with the race. I wasn't really being aggressive, but I was making sure that I was there as much as possible at the front. So yeah, all in all, a confidence booster, but also need to rectify this last 5K thing and the heat thing, because whilst it was another day where it was unprecedented heat in the location, I can't just rely on not being able to deal with the heat. So it was about 30 degrees-ish on the day, which is very hot for Wales, very unlike Swansea, but you know, that's becoming more and more often, and I have to deal with it. Okay, lastly, I am doing Leeds this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, it's a pretty solid field. It's got Laidlow, it's got Kieran again, and it's got Harry again, amongst many others. Like Nathan is going to be there, who's a very strong swim biker, Ben Goodfellow, Matt Collins, like there is loads of people, Ruben Zabunk, I think, as well. So yeah, a lot of people looking to do well, and just myself included, I guess. And I just want to go and be proud of the performance I put out. That's what my main aim is to do. And I think that if I can put out a performance I'm proud of, then it'll put me in contention for a slot for Nice, because it will equate to effectively have done all the right things, put myself out there, been confident, raced how I know I can race. And if it's good enough, it's good enough. If it's not, it's not. That's the bottom line. It's a very solid course, very hilly on the bike and the run. So I don't know if it'll suit me, but at the same time, it's going to be a long, hard, atrocious day. And I think that could suit anyone. So yeah, give it my best, and then I'll update you with the result and what is in store for the rest of the season, because at the moment, I don't know. It kind of depends on this and whether or not I qualify for Nice, or what I do after that is kind of a mystery, because I have a lot of thinking to do. I'm a bit tired. I've been going for a long time in terms of racing this season already, and I feel like I've done a lot. This will be my third Ironman, fifth race already, and I kind of just want to chill out for a week and not worry about having to prep for my next race. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.